Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and today I'm talking with Steve Campbell, who is the host of the One Big Thing podcast and who shares about how he grew up with a dad who was a bodybuilder and therefore his struggles with discipline, fitness, eating, and his body image. And actually, Steve's outlook changed when he stumbled across this podcast. You'll hear all about his journey in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources about how to get rid of cravings, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. Okay, so let's get to my chat with Steve. So Steve, can you tell us a bit about your background with sugar in your life?
Yeah. So Netta, thank you for having me on your podcast. You are somebody that I came across and I was intrigued enough to want to figure out who you are and what you do. And I stumbled upon the Life After Sugar podcast. So a little bit of background. I am the youngest of 3 sons. I am in my 30s. I'm 37 now. Growing up in my home, food was always a place of comfort and culture. My mom was a mama bear through and through. So every Sunday was family dinners, and almost to the point of I grew up actually as a little kid, very overweight. I was very chubby for probably most of my childhood until I hit about middle school, where I grew a few inches and that began to transform my body. But looking back at childhood photos, you could obviously see I was an athletic kid. I played 3 sports, but I definitely carried more weight than necessary. That's probably because growing up in the 90s, every grocery trip, even at that time, inflation is crazy today, but even at that time, my mom's grocery bill and my dad's grocery bill was a couple $100 for 3 boys who loved to eat. We played sports. We were very active. We were always on the go. And so we almost grew up with a sense of mom wanting to make sure we always had enough food, if not more. Second helpings, third helpings, eat up was something you heard. And it's not a knock on my mom. I think that was her way of communicating that she loved us. Well, that, for me created really a lifestyle of maybe overeating that I didn't really fully understand until I got a little bit older. I was fortunate enough to be a very active child. So playing 3 sports most of my life. I ended up earning a scholarship to play Division I lacrosse at Rutgers University in New Jersey, which was a great honor. But even going into my senior year of high school, I ended up tearing a ligament in my knee. And so I wasn't able to play sports for several weeks. And I ended up putting on quite a bit of weight just because that physical activity was gone for 4 or 5 months of my life as I went through physical rehab. And I was the heaviest I had ever been and about 235. And in high school, I normally weighed about 215. So to add 20 pounds, even as a 17-year-old, you could tell my body changed to the point that when I was lifting at that point, I was able to lift more weights because I was carrying more weight. My body began to expand and grow. And even today, As I've, tried to really in my 30s take care of my body, I still have stretch marks from when I was 17, 18 years old from expanding my body that much, training and not eating and taking care of myself. So even today, it's almost like a reminder to me of kind of where I've been in my life. It's something that I look at. So my college career never really took off. Playing Division I sports, you are constantly training, you are constantly preparing, so you could kind of eat whatever you want. Well, post graduating, my wife and I got married in our mid 20s. We started having children when I was 26. Later on in life. And now we have 4 kids under 7 years old. So I have a
Wow.
7-year-old son, a 6-year-old son, and then 2 3-year-old girls. So we are literally that are twins right in the thick of life. And I've always been somebody who has been conscious of body image, not to the point that I am self-loathing, but just I'm aware of how I carry myself, especially with what you said, being in business. I'm kind of the face of our company, so it's very important for me to take care of myself, especially when you are talking to people about money and life, which are really two big components to most people. They would say their finances are important, but also their life is important. Well, in this, virtual age of doing most things on video, it's really important that when you sign on to a screen and somebody sees you for the first time, that you are put together as much as you can be. So I've always had this inner awareness of just taking care of myself and discipline. And I'm the kind of person, we kind of touched on it when you were on my show. I've always had a level of discipline, which helped me get to play college sports, which helped me get into business. I've always had a certain way of being able to pick myself up. And I would say that I have a very addictive personality that's both good and bad. I am extremely passionate about my faith. I am extremely passionate about my wife, my children. I do everything 100% on the good side, but I also do everything 100% when I start to fall. And
Mm-hmm.
so I passionately pursue everything that I do in life. And when it comes to food and sugar, um, a lot of my childhood things that I did can catch up to me where I can go weeks of being disciplined with eating correctly, taking care of my body, and then be introduced to something I haven't had in a little while. And I was never the kind of person that could just have, when you look at the nutritional facts and it's a serving size, 2 cookies or 3 cookies. I mean, for me, it was always a sleeve of cookies,
Mm-hmm.
and just not realizing that as I was eating and I would start to crash, I would go as 100% just like I did on the good side. And it would almost be like as I would be consuming food, which is really just supposed to be fuel, it was almost a game in a way to eat as much as I possibly could. And I never realized kind of where that stemmed from. So today, I think, where I am today, I was curious to do something different, because I am in the thick of raising kids, running businesses, being a podcaster. If, life can easily overwhelm me and get the best of me. And if I'm not careful, then food can become a crutch in many ways, where when I'm mentally exhausted as a parent, or I just don't feel like pushing through a little bit today, I can reach for things that I know are not good for me because I believe some way, somehow, that it's going to fill that need. And so food has always had an interesting relationship, with my life. And I think, as you and I talked about on our episode, because I am not overweight from the sense that if you physically looked at my body, you may not think anything is wrong. But it's more of the mental mindset when it comes to food with me. That's something that I've really been trying to get a consistent handle on, not so much going from keto to this thing, because I've tried so many different things and I'm disciplined enough that I can succeed many times at the onset of it. But I think it's more of the continuation once I start seeing success, which is where maybe I've struggled in the past.
Yeah, yes, yes. I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate because I certainly can as well. And I wonder if that kind of approach to things of I'll do it for a good while, and then when I sort of get to my goal or get near my goal, I'll drop it or be less air quotes disciplined. And I wonder whether that comes from the diet culture, as I call it, where it's always a temporary thing. It's a thing to get to a specific goal, usually weight loss, but not exclusively. And then once you sort of hit that goal, then you just let it all go. And then more often than not, you just start from square one again. Does that seem like something that is in your experience?
Yeah, and I mean, growing up, my father was a bodybuilder. So for those, he worked at Lockheed Martin for years and years, but he always trained in the gym. And so when I was born, my brothers have two very strong biblical names, and so Stephen is a strong Bible name. But my dad will tell you that in 1950, oh boy, 59, 1960, my grandfather had taken my dad, and my grandfather was a very scrawny man. He had taken my dad to his first movie. And the very first movie I think that my dad saw was Hercules Unchained with Steve Reeves. And Steve Reeves in the 1960s was one of the very few bodybuilders, not like it is today. And when that curtained open and my father saw this man that looked very different from his dad, it was almost like this spark went off in my dad of that's what I want to look like when I grow up. And so my dad had always developed a discipline of lifting and eating right. So I did have a father figure in my life that always took care of himself. But so I kind of had an example in front of me. But body image, especially 37, if I turn on my Instagram account today, what my social media feed will show me is almost perfect looking humans, one after the other, that are in the best shape of their life, that are training, that are, doing battle ropes and all this stuff. And if you're not careful, you can somehow become disillusioned that that's what you should look like. And so I think for me, whether that's the culture of dieting, doing the next best thing, sometimes we just honestly reach for the next diet because it's a change.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us that are raising kids and doing a lot of the same things every single day, the monotony of life is what can get to us, where it just kind of feels like every day is the same thing. So introducing a keto type diet is so different. You have to change everything. That almost like going to the grocery store and buying all different foods. It's intoxicating in a way because you start doing it and you feel the success. But it's hard to maintain a keto lifestyle with a wife and kids that, you're preparing separate meals because they don't want to be eating fat in all their food, and a lot of the things that you have to do to stay in ketosis. Well, then you can go from thing to thing to thing. And so I think for me, really my goal was how can I be the best version of myself, not to strive for perfection, but my desire to put a why behind it is I want to live an extremely long life, to be with my kids and my wife as long as I can be. And what are the things that I need to do to take care of myself? And I think what really convicted me on your episode when you were with me, we had recorded kind of right after Thanksgiving. I indulged as much as I wanted to over that week and a half span. I live in Tennessee now, but I grew up in upstate New York. So I went home to see family. And again, around family, it's comfortable. It's Thanksgiving. It's almost in America. We celebrate overeating in that time. And I just let loose. And when I got home and I talked with you, and, we were talking about the benefits of life after sugar, again, I was jealous in a way that was not negative, but just envious because it seemed like you were so happy, and starting to listen to some of your episodes with some of your guests, just realizing, I guess, that the goals that I have are attainable if I'll just put, the right structure around it. And so I think, yeah, just going from diet to diet to diet, it's almost like you need something to make you feel right. And I think what you've introduced me to is something that seems to be far more consistent and achievable.
Yeah, oh, I'm happy to hear that because it's a message that I like to give on the podcast because it's true for me, but not everyone is ready to listen to it or to really internalize it. And we're already at different points in our lives. But I think this sort of the central tweak of the message is that people have struggled with is going from focusing on the food to focusing on you. And when you focus on you, and as you were saying, how you want to feel, how you want to live your life, then everything else falls into that basket, as it were. And eating or not eating, if you're doing intermittent fasting, or what you're eating and whatever, all that falls into the how do I want to feel, kind of basket, as I call it. And for me, at least, it gets a whole lot easier.
And I think when you finally feel like you have discipline structure, especially when it comes to around food, it frees you up to be mentally aware of everything else around you. When you are feeling lesser than because you made some really bad decisions the night before or even that morning, and you eat things and you immediately live with regret, or your clothes don't fit the right way, so you tie it into all the decisions that you've been making with food. You can have a beautiful family, you can have a beautiful spouse, you can have a great job, you can have friends that love you and still feel like a shell of yourself. And it's because no one sees what you're putting into your mouth when they're not around, and things that you assume are going to make you feel good, because they look good, they smell good. And I think what's hard is just developing the ability to be disciplined enough to fight for something that's worth fighting for. And what I've discovered is, as I've pursued, life after sugar, even for however long I've been doing it, and having that ability to be very mindful of what I'm consuming every day has freed me up. And this is going to sound completely ridiculous, but to be more aware of my kids, because I'm
Oh,
not thinking about myself so much. You know what I mean? When you don't feel great about yourself and you are, sad that you're putting on weight or you don't feel good, then you can have your kids right in front of you trying to talk to you, daddy, and you're mentally somewhere else. It feels like I feel more freedom to be fully present with my family. When I'm at work, I'm just more aware now of people and things they're going through. It sounds crazy, but in the last couple weeks, I've just picked up that people are hurting. And I'm not saying I didn't do that before, but because my mind isn't internally struggling with, I don't, and it's not that I've never loved myself, but that, I don't feel good. I don't love myself. I'm not pretty. I'm not handsome. And you have these internal dialogues constantly going on in your head. Then, Netta, you and I could be sitting down for a cup of coffee or tea, and you're talking to me, and the entire time I'm just thinking about how awful I feel. I'm not fully engaged. So when you begin to shift and you begin to say, no, food is a fuel. There's definitely time to enjoy it if that's what you want to do, but it's really to help me fuel the aspects of my life to make me feel the best I can be, really not just for me, but for the people around me that are dependent upon me. And then even those strangers that I'll come in contact with, that I know there's something I have to offer that maybe they need today. So it's funny how food, when you really get down to it foundationally, can really affect our desire and willingness to do things that we know are right for us.
wonderful. Wonderfully said. Yes. And it's funny because, we see food in different ways. You may see it as fuel. I see it as a great source of enjoyment. I don't necessarily just see it as fuel because that doesn't work for me. It's like I'm a bit of a hedonist, or, a foodie. So I need to have that sort of enjoyment. And food for me, I always say that I eat whatever I want. It's just that what I want to eat has changed. That's it, really. And then if you've listened to which I know you have, to several of the podcast episodes of the Life After Sugar podcast, you know that I like to redefine the word food. I think especially in North America, our definition of food needs redefining, reassessing. And but
Well, yeah, and I was the kind of person that looked forward to cheat days because that's what I was told my body needed. So you train really hard for 7 days, you eat really clean for 7 days, and then on the weekend, on date night or with your kids, you let loose. I never really found that did what it was supposed to do for me. It actually, I didn't, in having that food, feel like, wow, I've worked so hard this week. This is so good. You have it, and then many times, depending on, how extreme you go in that cheat meal because you've worked hard all week, you could actually undo a couple of days worth of work that you did. And so, whether you're a person that stands on the scale every day or it's measurements or, whatever you do, you work all hard all week, you start to lose weight, you feel good, then you have these cheat meals and you weigh yourself the next day and the scale is higher and you feel worse, and it's this cycle. And I wanted to get to a point where, again, I call it fuel because, I mean, almost psychologically, it helps me. I really do enjoy food, especially really good sources of food. I understand it was more so for me the things that I told myself that, I wanted to have, whether it was desserts, cake, cookies, cheeseburgers, you always tell yourself it's going to make you, enjoy it. And there's been very few times that I can look back on my life and be like, man, I can count all the times when I had the thing that I told myself I was working so hard to have, and it really made me feel good about myself. It's more of maybe it wasn't the food, it was the atmosphere.
Ah,
What I've told myself is that like, oh, I loved having that cheeseburger when we went out for at night. Maybe I just loved being with my friends. Maybe I
yeah.
just loved being in that moment and it was communally eating together. So it's almost like for me too, never, this is my personal journey. So whether you're, Netta totally would encourage you guys to subscribe to her podcast. Don't let this be your last stop. But for me, this is my personal health journey. It's never meant for me to shame my wife, to shame a coworker. I'm not going around saying you're going to put that in your mouth. It's just, man, how can I be the best version of myself? Not perfection. And when we're out, if I need to meal prep or I need to do things, it's more about my journey. But it's if there's people that want to enjoy things in life because they want to enjoy it, then you got to do what is right for you. My goal though through podcasting and living a healthy life is if I start to look better, and it makes you feel like $1,000,000 when people in your social network or whatever haven't seen you in a while, and it's Netta, you look great. What have you been doing? That
Hmm.
makes you feel the endorphins, the serotonin, it makes you feel good. What I want to do is combine that with Steve, you look great, and be like, have them be like, what have you been doing? And be willing to share it because I really believe that it could help the next person. And I really have a heart for men and dads that maybe their bodies have changed as they've had kids. Maybe they've let themselves go a little bit, and they just remember what they looked like in high school or in sports, and now in their 30s and 40s, maybe they're carrying more weight. It's one thing to be a motivational speaker to share words of affirmation to encourage people, but when somebody can look at you physically with their eyes and see you look different than me, it creates an opportunity to say, are you interested in kind of what I do? Because I'd be happy to share it with you. And what if that one introduction of life after sugar or whatever it may be, a way of training or exercising, what if that was the spark that that person needed to go be the healthiest version of themselves? I think that's the part that's exciting is viewing this way of taking care of yourself more as a bridge or a key to the life that you want to live, not so much hey, I'm better than you because I'm doing this thing, so you shouldn't eat that. And so a lot of this chimes down to, I think, just mindsets and the perspective that we have as to why we're doing what we're doing.
I just want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. I have a little quiz for you, a little question.
Sure.
That's the teacher in me. Do you know what bigorexia is? No,
And
right?
I don't think there's a friend that I can phone, so I don't
Uh-huh.
know.
You lost $1,000,000.
Right.
um, you know what anorexia is?
Hmm.
So bigorexia, and I had a student of mine in my English class do his research project on this. It is especially for men. It's kind of like body dysmorphia for men, very often men, but not exclusively, who kind of go to the gym and work out to get as buff as possible. And it turns into an unhealthy relationship with our own body, similar to the way that anorexia hits people, and mostly women, but not exclusively. And so, I can hear that you're very aware of issues that touch men, partly because you're a man, but just generally. And so it made me think of the fact that we can actually develop an unhealthy relationship with our own bodies, whether you're a man or a woman, with food and with anything else, and there's also the term orthorexia, which is an unhealthy relationship with healthy food. And all of that, for me at least, without wanting to simplify it all that for me equates to trying to feel less bad rather than feeling good. And I make the distinction between feeling less bad, using food, for example, to feel less bad, like you were just describing with the burger or whatever, and using food to feel actually good. Does that make any sense?
Oh, sure. I mean, I have been developing almost like a little mantra for myself because, it's I'm married and I have a family, but this is very much an individualistic journey. My family is not with me when I'm eating, so it's really up to me. And I've just been telling myself I can do hard things. And that's been something that has really helped me, whether it's I'm willing to try most things in life. And I think what you talked about, because I do train, 3 to 4 days a week. I normally get up at 4:30 in the morning, and this is not a boastful thing, folks. It's literally the only time I have to myself in the morning. If I don't set my alarm clock and get up to get out to the gym and get home before everybody wakes up, by the end of the day, if I try to go to the gym after work, my work is very mentally not draining. I just use a lot of mental capacity talking to clients and people and doing interviews, that when I'm in the car afterwards, it's just like, woof, I really gave a lot of myself today. There's nothing that I'd be able to do to go to the gym. But when I'm in the gym in the morning, body image is fascinating because growing up a heavy kid, when you start to see changes in your body, you're toning up. It almost, and you see this in the gym when people are like looking at themselves for too long in the mirror. They do an exercise and then they, flex, like they act like nobody's talking. That can become addictive too. Like to get in the best physical shape in your life. And I think for me, it's just more of having an overall health, carrying a healthy amount of weight, being healthy in my mindset, being healthy as a parent. It's about finding balance. There's, how can I, and I'm a very introspective person. I don't want anybody to look at my own life and call me out on something. I would rather be the first person that's aware of there's an aspect of my life that I really need to pay attention to. And this is something I work with my team on all the time. Do I have enough resources at my disposal to actually do something different? Or do I need to go seek more resources? And I would say for Life After Sugar, this is a great resource for people that have never, maybe they've tried all the different diets, they've, tried this and that. Maybe this is an opportunity for you because if there's something in business I don't understand, do I have enough information in front of me that I know what to do? And if not, let's go seek out a new resource. When it comes to being a parent, if my wife and I are really struggling raising our kids and discipline, do I have enough resources in my house, books, videos, or do I need to go seek something out? There's nothing shameful about, raising your hand and saying, Netta, I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. And it may just be that you don't have enough resources. Or I would challenge you that maybe you have all the resources. It's just time to do it. And there's a
Yeah.
certain point in my life where I get tired of being tired. I get tired of feeling a certain way. And I've never pointed a finger at other people and said so and so's doing this to me. It's I What I've found really helps me is almost doing a full fresh restart, sitting down with a cup of coffee, journaling, thinking about my thoughts, where are they coming from, thinking about days past, like why did I make that decision, and really just almost self-talk in a way of, well, that's I don't want to feel that way, so what do I need to do?
Mm.
And what I have found is that when I have those moments by myself where I'm really honest with myself about, man, I have really failed or dropped the ball, I got an opportunity. I can either just keep doing the same thing over and over again or say, you know what, this stops today, and do my best to set up guardrails, parameters, mindsets, whether it's meal prepping, whether it's like not putting myself in certain positions, not going in the kitchen at night, whatever it is, I also think about like what do I need to interject from this point on to really help me be successful. And I think if somebody's feeling stuck today, I just want to encourage you. There's something you can do. There's either resources you need to go acquire, or you just need to look at what's already in your life and just really make a stand that says, nope, from this moment on, I want what Netta and Steve are talking about.
Yeah, yes. And if it can be a source of inspiration, all the better, you know?
Hmm.
And so let's talk about how you yourself recently put into practice not just what I talk about, but your actual changes of habit. Can you talk about that a little bit in the last few days?
Yeah, sure. It's almost been 2 weeks that I've been sugar free since you and I had spoke. Um, so for me, I think it was just being really clear with myself about what I've been doing and really, first of all, taking an assessment of where I've been. I was able to eat everything that I wanted during Thanksgiving. I wasn't feeling great. And I think what I found from our time together is, what is 2 weeks going to cost me? What is 2 weeks really in the grand scheme of things? And I'm somebody who's always had, different fruits and, different things in my life. But I think what I was willing to try was what would life being sugar free for 2 weeks. So not having fruit, just sticking mostly to high proteins, good quality sources of proteins, really great sources of carbohydrates, and then really just reducing fruit for a period of time, not forever. I'm not against fruit whatsoever, but just to kickstart my body, to restart everything, to get my body back to understanding like this is going to be the normal day-to-day routine of how much food I'm going to eat. Because there was a period of time you ate whatever you wanted, however much your body begins to understand you consume these amount of things at certain times of the day, I'm ready for it. So something that I've always tried to do and really focused on during this time was intermittent fasting. So just being mindful of not eating a meal, past 6, 7 o'clock at night, and then not eating the next day till noon. And as I've done that, it's just my body's gotten a little used to it. Again, when I get hungry, I just tell myself I can do hard things. But a lot of it for me, and this is what we talked about on my show, which was just I have to meal prep because I have life with kids and a wife. I don't. There's not enough time between going to practices and doing things to when you finally have time to really prepare food for everybody. But for me, it's as much as the night before or early in the morning, getting up and making chicken or doing whatever in just for 2 or 3 days and then having it all ready to go. And what I have found is I really kicked off for me personally the first 2 days with a 48-hour fast. It was just something I made it to 50 hours. My goal is, 72. I didn't make it all the way just because I read all the time and try to acquire new information and had found the benefits of from time to time, not all the time, but totally resetting your body by doing 16-hour fast, 24-hour fast. And I just thought, let's go. And so I was able to do 50 hours. And just during those 2 days of not eating, I had staff members being like, so you're just not eating. And I was like, nope, I'm
Mm-hmm,
telling my body I don't need to.
mm-hmm,
And it was just something for me I needed to do. People need to do what's right for them. But introducing intermittent fasting and then meal prepping to prepare for me what a typical day looks like is I'll make my lunch in the morning. I'll put it together in Tupperware. And for me, it's just been a really good source of protein with, I use jasmine rice and sweet potatoes as my carbohydrate, and
mm-hmm,
then something like peppers and spinach mixed into it. And I have my first meal at noon. Then in the afternoon, I've been making egg whites and I've been bringing a bag of carrots and just, other things, sliced turkey. And so I'll have that throughout the day. And what I have found is that I look forward to those moments. Whereas, and again, and it's hard in my office, there's bowls of candy. My staff is not doing what I'm doing. So it's just for me focusing on my journey and what's important to me. And what's really helped is then at nighttime when I have dinner, eating a good meal each night. But then as I've seen, I've already dropped 5, 6 pounds in this process. That wasn't I had a goal in mind of weight wise what I wanted to get to, but not beating myself up over it and still going to the gym. But for me, what's really helped for my body is sometimes the scale, especially because I train, can be misleading. For instance, I can weigh 198, not training, and look one way in a mirror. I can be training as hard as I can, look 198, more muscle on my body, and look completely different. But for me, when I see that number on the scale, it does something to me, especially from growing up a heavier set kid. That number can sometimes mislead me or make me feel better than or lesser than if it's going in the right direction or where I want it to be. So I have found personally that using adjustable tape measure, and what I'll do is in the morning, I'll get up and just, put it around my love handles, my hip area, and just see, how are we doing? And I've been honestly very surprised. The scale has gone down slowly, but my waistline has gone down very quickly.
Huh.
And I think it's not that I'm not eating, I'm just eating really good sources of food. And at nighttime, I'm not reaching for the things that I was reaching for, the cookies my kids were having or finishing meals. And what I've just found, Netta, honestly, is by being able to get control in this area of my life, I look forward to it now, that it's just, I don't know, it's made me more aware of what else can I be doing. And what I mean by that is, there was times when you would just pick your battles, so you'd walk through your house and your kids might have destroyed it and made it dirty or dumped the laundry out looking for something.
Yeah.
And there's been times you just walk through that and you're just like, I don't have the space to deal with this today.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of let it be. Well, what I found is that that sounds so silly, by really just structuring what I'm eating and so I feel better, I know I'm starting to lose weight. I know that I'm not dealing with kind of the headaches. I've substituted any kind of diet soda drinks for seltzer, because that was something that we didn't talk about. But growing up, I there was always diet soda in my house as a kid, and I just have always been aware of maybe the detrimental effects of aspartame, and have really struggled for many years of stopping that altogether. So what I have found for my life in this journey is I need to substitute something. I can't just wholeheartedly stop doing something because it feels punitive in that way, as much as, hey, is there something else that I can substitute? And for me, just having the carbonation from seltzer was kind of the effect that soda was giving me in a way. And your body does really begin to adapt to your taste buds. So now, whereas the soda used to have a certain taste and you'd want it and you'd crave it because that's the way that folks it's made, is to make you want to come back to it.
Yep.
What I have found is that over these last 2 weeks, I do like the taste of seltzer now. It's become acquired, and I'm not reaching for the cupboard because my brain's telling me I need to. It's almost like I'm not aware of my kitchen right now because I have a renewed focus and I'm doing what I know I should be doing. So early on, but my goal is to, carry this on for as long as I can. And I think it's much more of a sustainable lifestyle versus kind of maybe what keto was, which was really hard to maintain for me.
Yes, that totally makes sense and comes back to, what we were talking about before. When you focus on the food, it tends to be more of a diet culture short-term goal. But when you focus on yourself and how you want to live your life, how you want to feel, and the way that you describe it seems like a much more sustainable way to live, because what I'm hearing is that your priority is feeling good, feeling in control around food, feeling peace around food. And who doesn't want that long term?
And just in my life personally, moving here to Tennessee, very different environmentally than New York, developed a lot of allergies that I never knew I had. And what's been interesting in this process is I've always felt bad, in the sense of when I would wake up in the morning, I would have headaches. So, you'd get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, you'd have a headache. I would take Tylenol to make it go away. And because you're kind of taught that's what you do. You have this medicine cabinet somewhere in your house, and when you feel pain or discomfort, you take something to make you feel better. I honestly just wanted to get away from that. I didn't want to rely on anything to either pick me up or make me feel different. And so it's not just life after sugar. I don't want to be popping Tylenol all my life. I don't want to be drinking soda I know I shouldn't drink. I don't want to be doing these things that no one sees. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm, FaceTiming people taking Tylenol, but it's more of like, I know I probably shouldn't be doing this. And like, what are the long term effects? So if you have listeners that are out there that if you just close your eyes and think about, man, are there certain things that I know I'm doing every day that aren't good for me? It may not be eating cake, it may not be eating cookies. And for me, like honestly, I was a closet eater in a way. I would be, when I walk into an office, I am in fairly decent shape for my life. Be in the office and everyone would bring in, a baked good or cookies or cake. And at some point, everybody would grab a cup of coffee and have cake. And I was always the person that was like, no, I'm okay. And it's really because it was like I didn't want to be in my office eating sweets at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because I knew how I'd feel. Well, I could be as strong as I wanted during the day, but at nighttime when my kids went to bed or I was exhausted, I found that I was reaching for very similar things at probably the worst time of the day. So just even getting away from those kind of like burn and crash scenarios. But then again, for me, it's just I don't want to rely on a beverage. I don't want to rely on a pill. I don't want to, and I wasn't popping 9 Tylenol a day, but anytime I had pain, a headache, I would reach for Advil or Tylenol. And I just don't want to 40 years from now have a doctor be like, hey, you've got some weird body scans going on. Did you ever consume too much of this? So just like, okay, how can I, even at my age of 37, just be extremely mindful of what I'm doing to myself that maybe nobody is seeing that is just holding me back. So 2 weeks, haven't taken any Tylenol, haven't had any soda. I have minor headaches from time to time, but I tell myself I can do hard things. And what I realize is when I don't focus on my headache, it actually goes away pretty quick. And I think a lot of that has to do with not having sugar, which we don't realize the detrimental effects that can have on us. By not having that sugar, I think a lot of maybe my headaches right now are stemming from my body resetting in a way.
Sure.
And I've read for people that have gone through this journey that kind of like how you go through ketosis, you get the keto flu. When you strip your body of something that it's been used to having, nobody is at a diner opening a sugar packet and just consuming it. But if you are consuming sugar all throughout your day and then you go on a week, 2 week of getting rid of it, your body goes through almost a withdrawal. And so I think some of my headaches right now that go away fairly quickly are just my body realizing I'm consuming less calories every day. I'm not having sugar in me. And so I think because I'm understanding that's where it's coming from, it almost makes me push through in a way that gives me a little bit of a healthier mindset.
Yes, totally, totally. And a lot of people, myself included, when I cut sugar, I needed to supplement with hydration, electrolytes, and salt. And that helps a lot of people get rid of the headaches as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, your body is like resetting and it's gonna react in that way. Yes. Look, Steve, you're so inspiring with your insights and your awareness. And I'm happy to have you, not just for your story, but also because you're a man and it's not always easy to find men who are willing to talk about their struggles and their journey. So thank you for inspiring everybody on this podcast and also with your podcast, The One Big Thing. I'll put the link
Yep.
in the show notes. Thank you for everything you are doing.
Well, I appreciate you, and this is my heart. So if you like podcast, the one big thing is an interview style show, very much like this. But I have people from you being in one of them, all walks of life, to be honest about things like parenting, about marriage, about climbing the ladder of success, and having people tell the stories, the highs, the lows, really culminating in the one big thing that they wish they could share with somebody else. And so, if you like honesty, transparency, intimacy, someone being honest that sometimes life is hard, it's unfair, and how do you make the most of it? Then, I would encourage you to check out our show, especially get on and smash that subscribe button for Netta's episode, leave a comment because you were wonderful. So I'm just glad that our lives intertwined here at one point, and I hope that if I can be a resource for anybody that listens to your show, if you're a fellow dad and you just need somebody to bounce ideas off of, I will make sure that my contact information is in the show notes because if I can help one more person, then that's what this whole thing's about.
Yes, bingo. Thank you. Snap, same here. And thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Well, that was a very inspiring chat with Steve. And I'm so happy that he came onto this podcast to share his struggles as a man, as a dad, and basically as a human being whose path is not always smooth to his life after sugar. And as Steve mentioned, his details are in the show notes with this episode. And also, as he mentioned, I was a guest on his podcast, The One Big Thing, and that episode came out on December 13th, 2023. Go check it out. And if, like Steve and many of my guests on this podcast, you're also struggling with cravings and with sugar and with your relationship with food, then there are two ways that we can work together. First, in the After Sugar Club, which is designed to give you support and accountability through our live check-in calls at a more affordable price. The After Sugar Club is always open for you. Check out the After Sugar Club private membership when you go to aftersugarclub.com, click on After Sugar Club in the top menu. And for more step-by-step guidance and customized support to help you get rid of cravings so that you can slim down and finally feel in control around food, there's my 90-day program, Freedom from Cravings Formula, which opens a few times a year. To get more info about the program and when it next opens, go to aftersugarclub.com and click on the big green button to schedule a clarity call with me so that we can talk together to see if the Freedom from Cravings Formula program is a good fit for you. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.